Hello Word Nerds! Happy Thursday! Apologies for the late upload today. We have been in hurricane preparation mode over here, and I had this house guest who was evacuating the hurricane as well. But I'm so excited to be here today, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about revisions, specifically revising a difficult book. I've had a lot of books in my life that I've written where I looked at it at the end and I was like, this is going to be a lot of work and I don't think the outcome is going to be worth it. Like, I don't think this book idea is strong enough to make it worth all of the work I'd have to do in revisions. And so I've ended up trunking them. But my current work in progress was a book that I finished and I knew was going to be extremely difficult to revise, but I wanted to do it because I thought that the idea and the characters were worth it. You've probably heard me talk about this book before. It's my spooky body parts organ magic book, if you are a frequent WordNerds watcher. I finished the first draft of this book back in November of 2017. I had spent a year kind of struggling to figure out what I was going to write next after I had gotten an agent and going on sub for the first time, and it was extremely difficult, but I finally had this idea. I was excited. I pumped the whole draft out in November and I finished it, and I knew pretty much from the minute I finished it that I had not told the story that I meant to tell. And I knew that to change it to what I wanted it to be, I would need to change the tense, add a point of view character. I had a main girl character and a main boy character, but the whole book was from the girl's point of view. So I wanted to have the girl and the boy, but then the boy, he was a prince in the first draft, and I didn't want to deal with royals, and so I wanted to do something different there. And basically it was just a ton of things would need to be revamped. So I took a lot of time and figured out exactly what I wanted to do there, what my new world was going to look like so that my main character wouldn't be working with a prince, but would still be working with someone important. And then I got started on revisions. And for this, revisions meant rewriting the first draft. Like starting from page 1 all over again. I had to put the entire draft 0, as I've been calling it, just in a folder. I didn't even want to look at it while I was writing the next draft because I was afraid that I would rely too heavily on the plot points that I had already written because that was work I'd already done and I didn't want to be lazy about it. So I rewrote the whole thing. That took me several months. It did not go as quickly this time, but I did finally finish it, and despite the fact that I took it from first person present tense with 1 point of view and put it in third person past tense with 2 point of views, somehow the book had gone from 70,000 words to about 55,000 words, which is not enough words for a fantasy. So I wrote up a synopsis, sent it to my agent at the time, and we kind of hashed out what we were going to do, how to make the plot better, how to beef everything up so that it was more words. And I went through another round of revisions. This time I specifically focused on the first half of the book because I knew that was where most of the bulking up was going to be. A lot of it had to do with the main character's best friend characters. I wanted to add a lot more of them, so I looked at every scene where I could put more interaction with those characters and have them doing more. And I stuck a post-it note on the card. And then I went scene by scene and just added in all those things as much as I possibly could. Finally, I finished that and decided to move into the final stage of revisions for this one before I send it to beta readers, which is the part that I'm most excited to show you today, which is my revisions binder. So we're gonna jump over to just looking at the binder camera view for this part, so I can kind of walk you through this massive binder that I created to help make these revisions seem more manageable, because by this point I'd been looking at the book so much that it was kind of like, I don't know. Like, I knew the big things I needed to do, but I was so sick of looking at the book the way that I had that I didn't even know how to begin to do those changes. Okay, welcome to my floor. This is my revisions binder. I realized that I was having a really hard time keeping track of everything and I was just feeling generally overwhelmed, so I decided to put everything that I could possibly need into one giant binder. I had done it in the past, actually. Let me loosen this camera here. All those binders are from books that I had used binders for revisions on in the past, and so I figured I would try it out again, and it was a raging success, at least for finishing revisions. Who knows about the finished product. So in this binder, at all times, I would keep my markers. Lost the purple one, but it's always good to have a lot of different colors in revisions. And then the very first thing I had here is the book itself. I printed the whole thing out because I find when you've been looking at something for such a long time, it's nice to have a copy that looks different from the one that you've been looking at on a screen for so long. The first page is a prologue that my agent thought I needed, and upon some introspection, I decided I just needed a better beginning of the book, and I didn't need a prologue, so that is why there's a huge X through it. It's very messy. The very first thing I did was just do a whole read through of the book, making, you know, notes about things I needed to fix. I would pretty frequently add things in blue that were going to be plot changes. Pink was character changes, and then black was just like prose level things that I thought needed to be fixed. And so for the first round, when I just read through the book, I didn't do anything except for make those notes in the lines. I do have these post-it notes here, but that came later. The next section, put a little note card over because spoilers. I wanted a section specifically for the magic system because it is the most complex magic and world that I've ever written. And that was what was the most overwhelming to me, and so it was a very big comfort to be able to have that right there if I couldn't remember which body part did which prosperity spell or something. I could just turn right to it and see. Every section had extra blank lined paper in it so that I could go through and add more pages of notes as I got to know things better. The next section that I had was for world. I put a map right in the front, and then, you know, the system of government, how that all works. I had some notes on topography, and then I also had a section for just like random cultural notes, anything that I would probably need to know with regards to how my character would interact with the world. This section is for characters, which I'm not showing you anything because spoilers again. I want to strike a balance in this video between showing you like all that I'm doing, but also not showing you so much that you wouldn't want to read this book one day, hopefully. But in this section, I kept pretty rigorous notes on the 4 main characters in the book, on their backstories, their goals, their fears, how far they were willing to go to get the things they want, and just basically the general shape of their character arcs. This section was for plot. This is where a lot of my revisions notes ended up going. I ended up doing a pretty deep rewrite of my ending, so I had the new beats for the entire ending written down point by point. I had my game plan for all of the things that I still needed to do for revisions. It was really once I made this game plan that I was able to go through and figure out exactly what needed to be changed. For example, in the last draft, I had kind of like a magic lessons component, and I wanted to take that out and replace it with a big event. And so then I went back through to the book section and put these little post-it notes, these little thin ones, and those are all the parts where there were magic lessons and I was going to change them to something else. I have a section of people I would be interested in subbing to. The next section was for goals. I've written some of my personal goals on these pages, you know, dreaming big type of things that I am keeping to myself for now, but that will hopefully happen with this book. And then I had this last little section that doesn't really have any designated purpose, but that I have been keeping notes on a possible sequel in. You know, sometimes ideas come to you and you don't want to lose them, and now I have this binder, so it seems like the most logical place to keep those notes. And that is my full binder. I've found it is really, really helpful in keeping track of all of my thoughts. It helps me not to get overwhelmed. I have multiple checklists in here to help me keep track of things and not feel lost as to what I'm supposed to do next. I also find it really helps to have my goals listed, my dreams for this book, as well as people I'm interested in submitting it to, just kind of to give me something that I'm working towards aside from just a finished product, which is also important, but it's nice to imagine that this finished product will have a future. Let me know down in the discussion section what things you do to help make revisions seem more palatable. If you have any methods that are just incredible and they work great for you, I would love to hear about them. Be sure to tune in this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time when we are going to be talking about perfecting your prose, so taking your actual sentence level writing and making it shine. I cannot wait to see you all then, and until then, stay nerdy.